I know how this sounds, but 19-year-old Erin Cole bought an abandoned ferry terminal for $9 because the caretaker's office had a lock, a dry floor, and a heater that might still work. She wasn't looking for an inheritance. She wasn't looking for her mother. According to the only family Erin had left, her mother drowned in a ferry accident when Erin was still a baby. But on Erin's first night inside the terminal, with the power disconnected and rain striking the broken windows, the departure bell rang by itself at exactly 2:17 in the morning. One sharp metal chime, then another. Erin followed the sound to gate 4, pulled down a warped section of the old departure board, and found a locker hidden inside the wall. There was a hospital bracelet in it. The name printed on that bracelet was not Erin Cole. It was Erin Marlowe, and beneath it sat a cassette labeled in faded ink. For my daughter, if Claire ever fails to destroy this. Before the terminal, Erin's entire life fit inside a canvas backpack and a plastic grocery bag. She had aged out of foster care 6 months earlier. Her Aunt Claire had technically been her guardian, but Erin had spent most of her childhood moving between temporary placements whenever Claire decided she was too difficult to keep at home. Claire always had an explanation. The house was too small. Her marriage was under stress. Erin needed more structure. The state had better resources. Look, Claire told her the last time Erin asked why she had never been allowed to stay. I did what I could. Your mother left chaos behind. I wasn't going to let it swallow my whole life, too. Erin's mother, Lena Marlowe, had supposedly died during the Blue Water ferry accident 18 years earlier. A winter storm pushed one of the passenger ferries against a concrete pier. Several people went into the water. Lena's body was never recovered. Claire treated that as proof. She's gone, she would say. You need to stop inventing a different ending. Erin had no photographs of Lena, except one small image from a newspaper clipping. The face was grainy. The article described Lena as a young ticket clerk who had been missing since the accident. That was all Erin had been allowed to know. By 19, she worked evenings washing dishes at a seafood restaurant near the harbor. When the restaurant closed, she slept wherever she could. 2 nights on a friend's couch, 3 nights in the back room of a laundromat, sometimes inside the bus shelter near the courthouse. She kept her money in 3 places because she had learned that one hiding place was the same as no hiding place. $30 in her shoe, $20 behind her phone case, and $11 inside an empty breath mint tin. You know what hurt the most? It wasn't sleeping in public. It was passing Claire's house on the city bus and seeing the guest room light on. The room existed. There was a bed inside it. Claire simply preferred that it remain empty. One afternoon, Erin went to the county office looking for information about emergency housing. On a bulletin board beside the elevators, she noticed a municipal auction notice. Most of the listings were equipment, broken desks, an old snowplow, several filing cabinets. At the bottom was a photograph of the Blue Water Ferry Terminal. The place had closed 7 years earlier after repeated storm damage. Its roof leaked, the eastern waiting room had flooded twice, and a developer had spent years arguing with the county over the waterfront parcel. Opening bid $9. Erin read the listing twice. The buyer would assume cleanup responsibility and receive temporary use of the caretaker's quarters while the title was reviewed. A dry room, a locking door, possibly a heater. That was enough. At the auction, Erin sat among contractors and property investors, wearing clean boots and expensive coats. When the terminal came up, nobody raised a hand. A man in the front row laughed. "You'd spend 50 grand just getting the mold to move out." The auction officer sighed. $9. Any bidder? Erin lifted her hand. The room turned toward her. She was wearing a restaurant hoodie that smelled faintly of fryer oil. Her hair was still damp from washing it in the employee restroom sink. The man in front laughed again. Erin looked directly at him. "Okay," she said. "Then don't bid." Nobody did. The gavel fell. For $9, Erin bought the building where her mother had supposedly died. Claire called less than 2 hours later. "You did what?" Erin held the phone away from her ear. "How did you hear about it?" "That doesn't matter. That building is condemned. The caretaker's room passed inspection. You cannot stay there. I thought you said I needed to become independent." There was a pause. Then Claire's voice softened in a way Erin had learned to fear. "Listen, sweetheart. Some places carry bad memories. That terminal destroyed your mother. You don't know what you're walking into." Erin stared across the harbor at the terminal's broken roofline. "No," she said quietly. "I guess I don't." The main doors resisted at first. Salt had swollen the frames, and wind had pushed sand into the hinges. When Erin finally forced one open, the building exhaled cold air that smelled of seawater, wet plaster, rust, and old paper. Rows of molded plastic seats faced windows clouded with salt. A ticket counter stretched along the western wall. An enormous departure board hung above it, frozen on routes that no longer existed. Gate 1, Gate 2, Gate 3, Gate 4. Beyond Gate 4, a hallway led toward the sealed dispatch room. Someone had nailed plywood over the door. That was the first thing that didn't make sense. The rest of the terminal had been left to rot, but the plywood over that one door was newer than everything around it. The screws were clean. The wood had not warped. Someone had protected the room after the terminal closed. Erin spent the afternoon cleaning the caretaker's office. The heater coughed, smoked, and finally produced a weak stream of warm air. Near sunset, an older man appeared outside carrying a toolbox. His name was Amos Reed. He had maintained the terminal's electrical system for 34 years. "The county told me somebody finally took the place," he said. "Didn't say it was a kid. I'm 19. To people my age, that's a kid with paperwork." He looked at her more carefully. "Cole, right?" Erin nodded. Something changed in his expression. "You related to Claire Cole?" "She's my aunt." Amos lowered his eyes toward the floor. "Well," he said slowly, "that explains why she called me this morning and offered me cash to stay away from here." Erin stopped sweeping. "What?" "She said the building was unsafe, said you were confused." "And are you going to stay away?" Amos placed the toolbox on the counter. "I worked here too long to start obeying Claire Cole now." He repaired 2 lights and checked the heater. Before leaving, He stood under the departure board and looked up at Gate 4. "If you hear the bell tonight, don't let it frighten you." Erin stared at him. "There's no electricity in the main terminal." "I know." "Then how could the bell ring?" Amos pulled on his coat. "That's the question Lena asked me to make sure you answered." Before Erin could stop him, he walked into the rain. At 2:17, the bell rang. Erin woke on the caretaker's cot and sat upright. One chime, then a second. The sound came from the main waiting room. She took a flashlight and stepped into the dark terminal. Wind pushed rain through a cracked pane. The plastic seats creaked as the building shifted. The bell rang a third time. Gate 4. Erin walked toward it. The bell was mechanical, not electric. A thin steel cable ran from it behind the departure board. When she pulled on the lower frame, one section moved away from the wall. Behind it was a narrow maintenance cavity. Inside sat a brass lever, a bundle of letters, and a small locker. Locker 217. The lock had already been broken. That scared her more than if it had been secured. Someone had opened it recently. Inside was a hospital bracelet, an old cassette recorder, 3 tapes, a stack of returned envelopes, and a photograph of a young woman in a Ferry uniform holding a baby. Erin knew the baby was her before she could explain how. The woman had Erin's eyes. Taped to the recorder was a note. "Play the blue tape first." Erin pressed the button. Static filled the empty terminal. Then a woman began to speak. "My name is Lena Marlowe. If Erin is hearing this, then she survived all the people who found it easier to lie to her." Erin sank onto the floor. The voice continued. "I did not drown the night of the Blue Water accident. I was pulled from the water 3 miles south of the pier. I had a head injury, no identification, and no memory for almost 4 months." Erin covered her mouth. "When I remembered my name, I called Claire. She told me my daughter had died after the accident. She said there had been a hospital infection. She said there was no child left for me to come home to." Erin stopped the tape. For a second, she thought she was going to be sick. Her whole childhood rested on one story. Her mother had died. But Lena's voice was older than the accident. She had survived. Erin pressed play again. "Years later, I learned Erin was alive. Claire had taken guardianship and changed her surname. Every letter I sent came back. Every attorney I contacted received documents claiming I was unstable and dangerous. The returned envelopes were addressed to Erin. One for every birthday. Most were unopened. Across several of them, in Claire's handwriting, were the words, 'Do not contact this child again.'" The following morning, a black SUV pulled up outside the terminal. Claire stepped out with a man carrying a leather folder. Erin met them beneath the departure board. Claire looked at the open wall panel and went pale. "You had no right to tear into county property. I own the building. You own cleanup responsibility. The title is contested." The man placed documents on the ticket counter. He introduced himself as a representative for Harbor North Development. "We're prepared to pay you $5,000 to surrender possession immediately." $5,000. To Erin, it was a year without sleeping in laundromats, a deposit, food, a real bed. Claire leaned closer. Take it. To be honest, this is more help than anyone else is going to offer you. Erin looked at her aunt. I found Mom's tapes. Claire's face became completely still. The developer's representative glanced between them. Perhaps this is a family matter. No, Erin said. It became a property matter when you brought papers. Claire lowered her voice. Your mother was ill? She survived. She was confused. You told her I was dead. I was protecting you. From what? Claire's eyes filled, but Erin could not tell whether it was guilt or anger. From a woman who disappeared whenever life became difficult. She had a brain injury. She came back years later expecting to take you like nothing had happened. No one tells you how much betrayal actually hurts. It wasn't the lie by itself. It was hearing how easily Claire had practiced making cruelty sound responsible. Erin gathered the documents without signing them. I didn't want revenge, she said. I just wanted the truth. Claire looked toward locker 217. The truth won't give you a home. Erin held her mother's photograph against her chest. Maybe not, but apparently you've been standing inside mine. Amos took Erin to a legal aid attorney that afternoon. The third cassette contained the final piece. Lena's mother had owned the terminal parcel through a family trust. Lena was the beneficiary, and Erin became the successor after Lena's death. Claire had filed documents claiming Lena died in the accident, then negotiated development rights before Erin turned 18. The $9 auction had not transferred clean ownership. It had triggered a mandatory title review. By bidding, Erin had unknowingly forced the county to reopen the record Claire wanted buried. But the strongest evidence was not the deed. It was Lena's last recording. I used to believe Claire kept Erin because she loved her, Lena said. Maybe part of her did. But love that requires a child to forget her own mother is not protection. It is possession. Lena explained that Amos had hidden the tapes and connected the old mechanical bell to a timer powered by a small wind-up mechanism. Every night at 2:17, the time Lena was pulled from the water, the bell rang. She had hoped that one day Erin would hear it. The court voided Claire's development agreement and recognized the family trust. Claire lost control of the property and faced a civil investigation over the false filings. Erin could have sold the waterfront land. The developer doubled its offer, then doubled it again. She refused. Instead, she restored the caretaker's rooms. First, then the waiting area. Amos helped repair the departure bell. Local businesses donated windows and paint. The old ticket counter became a kitchen. Above Gate 4, Erin placed a simple sign, the Harbor House. It became temporary housing for young adults leaving foster care, people with backpacks, plastic bags, and nowhere safe to sleep. Each person received a key, not a mat on the floor, not permission to stay until someone changed their mind. A key. On the first winter night after Harbor House opened, Erin found a young woman sitting alone beneath the departure board, gripping her backpack with both hands. "You can put that down," Erin told her. The young woman shook her head. "People take things." "I know. Is there a curfew?" "There are rules," Erin said, "but nobody is going to throw you outside for being scared." The girl looked toward the hallway. Which room is mine? Erin placed a key in her hand. Gate 4, first door on the left. At 2:17 in the morning, the old bell rang once. Erin stood beneath it holding Lena's photograph. For most of her life, she believed the terminal was the place where her mother disappeared. Now she understood it was the place where her mother had left a trail back to her. The building had never been waiting for a developer. It had been waiting for Erin to learn her real name.